Hi, I'm Samantha Tong, and just over a year ago, I set up Labrakita Marketing. Before I did this, there are all sorts of elements of business that I knew nothing about. So I didn't know a whole lot about the legal side, accounts, etc. But one of the areas that I really wasn't going to struggle with was marketing communications. It's my bread and butter. I've been doing it on a day-to-day basis for over 15 years before I even set up on my own. But if you're in a similar position to me, but with marketing instead of accounts, some pointers might be helpful. So that's why I put together my top 10 marketing communications tips. So, start off with, who are you? Do you really know who you are, and do your customers understand that? Now, your brand, a lot of people, when they think about brand, is the logo, their colours, their font, etc. Now that's your branding. But your brand is really the core of who you are and what you do, and how that's represented to the customers. I really like this definition from Wolf Ollins of a brand. So it's a set of ideas, what you stand for in your customers' minds, and it's shaped by your actions, not just by your words and your marketing communications. And that's recognised through the visual and verbal style. So that's your branding, that's your logo, etc. Now, why do we need to worry about this? Well, research shows that brand-focused companies, now that's companies where all their employees know and understand what the brand is and how they fit into that, have profit margins twice their industry standard. So it really does pay to get to grips with your brand. Now, this is my brand proposition. So I refer back to this whenever I have to think about my brand. So any marketing communications I do, I refer to this. You can probably see within that how I came up with making your complex simple, which is my tagline. But I also use this to work with the graphic designers, create all my branding. And all the messages that go out, they reflect this in some way. Now, in order to put your own brand proposition together, which will help you in terms of making sure that you and all your employees, if you have any, understand that and where they fit in, is by using a brand butterfly. This is a Wolf Ollins method. So Wolf Ollins, just to explain, is one of the world's largest brand agencies, and they teach this to other people. So you start off with what's wrong in your customer's world. Make sure that really is your customer's world, the industry they operate in, etc. You're not trying to solve world peace here, but really get a few bullet points together on that, and then really think about what's special about you and what you do. What is different about you? And that will really help you condense that into a brand proposition. It's where that overlap is. If you do have employees, it's also great to use this in a workshop, so you can find out from them what's wrong in the customer's world, things that you may have missed otherwise. You may even not realise that they have more other ideas about what's special about you. It also helps get buy-in from them from day one. So my first tip number one, make sure that you live and breathe your brand. Now, where are you going? Do you know, I'm sure you're doing marketing communications. You're here listening to me. Maybe you're doing some social media, maybe even doing some advertising, etc. But do you know you're really focusing your efforts in the right places? If you're not sure, you could be wasting money somewhere, or you may be also missing a trick where you could be investing money and really getting some results from that. So a really good place to start is to really think about your objectives. That's SMART objectives, specific, measurable, etc. You start off with your business objectives. I'm sure you have them. Look at your your shorter and longer term objectives here. So with research shows that within marketing communications, it really pays to think about the split of long and short term. So in B2B, that's business to business, the optimum in terms of what you invest in your short term versus your long term objectives should be about 50-50. In B2C, that's business to consumer, that's much more skewed towards the longer term, 60-40. So your long term is really about your brand building, awareness, whereas your short term is more likely to be things about things like leads to convert into sales, that kind of thing. So once you've really thought about that, you really need to put together a marketing plan based on that. Now, there are various marketing communication planning templates out there, but I really like PR Smith's soft stack plan. It really helps focus my mind. It's what I was taught in my chartered qualifications, and it's what I use with my clients on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, I really recommend looking that one up and potentially using that one. But at the end of the day, it's really important to make sure that you have that marketing plan, so you know what you want to achieve and how you're going to achieve it. Now, who are you talking to? Who's your target audience? It's really tempting just to say, oh, everyone. But you have limited resources at the end of the day. If you have a niche, it's much easier to focus those resources in that particular area. It's also makes it easier to talk to that specific audience and get the messaging right for them to solve their issues. Which kind of brings me on to the next point, to make sure that you're speaking their language. It's so easy to slip into your own industry language using acronyms that maybe someone else doesn't understand. So really think about how they speak and talk their language in your marketing communications. So tip number 3, know your audience. So important. Now, it's so easy to explain what you do, even if it's a fairly simple product or service, in a complicated way. The real skill is simplifying that, and that's really important. Even if your audience is quite technical, they're still bombarded with thousands of messages a day. So you really need to simplify that, get their attention, and then maybe give them more information later. Now, there are various ways to make sure that you are simplifying your message. One thing that I always remember is something an old manager told me. He said, think tabloid, not broadsheet. Now, what he didn't mean was sensationalist headlines. What he meant was short words and sentences that are easy and quick to understand. Again, your audience might be technical, but they haven't got a lot of time. And you haven't got a lot of time to convince them to read more. Which kind of brings me on to the next point. Don't overload people with information all at once. It's really easy to do. It's easy to believe that your customer wants to know everything about your product immediately. They don't. They might never need to know everything. So think about where that customer is in that journey and what information they need at any one point in time. Especially if it's that first point of contact. Make it simple and about the benefits for them. Infographics, it's another way to really simplify what you're getting across to the customer. It's a good way of visually showing what the benefit of your product or service is to them. So think about working with a graphic designer to come up with something like this. And then look at your navigation. Now, if what you do is relatively simple, like me, you may not need a whole lot of layers of navigation. But if what you do is very technical, especially with technical products, you may need to break that up a bit so that people are dealing with a certain amount of information in one go, easy chunks that they can consume easily. So I use this as an example. They do one of the things they do is air compressors. Someone might know they need an air compressor. They might not know what type of air compressor they need. They might not even know what's available. So if you have that different extra layers of navigation so that people can take in the information they need at the right time and where they are in their customer journey. Another thing to really think about is where, if ever possible, to tell things in a story form. It can be as simple as a case study. In business to business, case studies are the best performing content. It's because a story is more engaging, it's easier to remember. So always think about that. And don't necessarily confuse simple with short. Sometimes longer content is actually better performing. It really depends what it is. So if something's a bit more technical, your customers at a research stage, you may find that, for example, longer blogs are actually better performing. 1,000 to 2,000 words instead of your standard 400-word blog. So my tip number 4, keep it simple.